All right, so in theory, we should be recording this now. So hopefully this all works for us. All right, so where I wanted to go as a starting point today was first introduce the idea that you can create a function of your own, and then you can also create your own module then full of functions that you can use over and over again. So for this, I'll just start from scratch. Now I've already defined Python to run at this command prompt, right? So if I type in, I've already done the whole DOS key thing, so we're not going to do that over and over again. So Python works as a command. I've got a memory key installed, my F drive here, and it's got a bunch of code. So what I'm going to just do is create a new Python script, and I'm going to just comment, and we'll just call this funky intro. Funky intro. All right, so I'm going to file save as, and for now this will be on my F drive. Funk intro. Hi. Save. All right, so that exists, and just for fun, I'll just have it say print hello. All right. So Control S, save that. So I should be able to go here in Python and say funcintro.py, and it comes back and it says hello. All right, that's nice. Now, I might want to say hello a lot of times. Now, of course, I mean, this is super trivial. But what I want to do is, I want to be able to reuse this code over and over again. Maybe this is more complicated. Print hello, Command N, print. This is a function intro /n, and print quote. That's all I have to say. All right, so I Control S. So I've got all three, I've got a bunch of commands here that are happening. And if I've saved this, Control S, and I run it again, it does those things. Hello, this is function intro. That's all I have to say. Okay, great. Now, I might want to do this over and over again. So instead of having to type in this information over and over again, what I want to do is define a function that'll do all three of these commands for me as a single command in Python. So what I want to do is define a function. And to do that in Python, we just say def, that's the define, and then we want to give it a name. So I'm going to call this say hello. And then by putting in 2 brackets, that simply tells Python that this function, say hello, it doesn't take any parameters, so we don't have to give it any information. And so then I can hit a colon, just like I would at the end of an if statement or something like that. And then all the code that's indented after will be part of this function. So I'm just selecting all these lines and hitting tab to move in once, so that this basically says define a function, say hello, doesn't take any parameters, and then colon. All right, so in that function, I've got these 3 commands. All right, so if I save this right now, the only thing that happens inside this piece of Python code is a function gets defined, and then it's never used. So if I go and run this right now, absolutely nothing happens. So even though all those print statements are in there, nothing ever tells Python to actually use them, okay? So if I want to use those functions, this function, in an actual script, I might say, all right, so this now, because I didn't have any indentation, I don't have any def, so I can say print, this starts the script. Okay, and that's all that the actual script does. All right, I'm Control S, saving this. I'm going to run that again. And the only thing that comes out of this is this starts the script. So is that clear that I'm only running the actual commands that are not in the function, right? But now if I want to run this function, all I have to do is give say hello with 2 parentheses, and that indicates to Python, oh, okay, well, the parentheses indicate to me that this is a function, so I need to find that function and run it. And sure enough, there's a function that says say hello, define, say hello with parentheses. So it'll do whatever commands are in here. And then just to wrap it up, I can say print, this is the end. Oops. All right, so my actual program here, my actual script is right here. Print, this starts the script, run the say hello function, and then print, this is the end. And my say hello function is defined, so I'll save that. And now when I run this, now this is the start, and then it runs the defined function. Hello, this is the function intro. That's all I have to say. And then it runs, this is the end. Okay? So does this make sense now? Right? Now, I can pass parameters in there, right? So I can say show name. All right, we'll just give it a show name. So I can say this show is and plus show name. All right, so by putting a name in here, just like I would a variable somewhere else, inside the parentheses, that means that say hello is expecting an input parameter. It'll call whatever it's given, it'll call it show name from now on. And so if I use show name, it'll take whatever's been put into it as a parameter, right? So if I could say show name mint. I need a quote. Mint. All right. So now I'm going to pass it the word mint. It's going to go into show name, and then the show is, and it should give me that name. So I'll save that. And so now we have hello. This show is mint. That's all I have to say. This is the end. All right. So that way I can pass information into that function. This is making sense so far? And if I want to add more variables to this, I can say show res, right? So show resolution. The resolution should be, and then show res. Okay. So I can say hello, mint, and 1080. Save that. And I get an error. Cannot concatenate str and int objects. Oh, okay. So I defined this as a value instead of quotes, so it's a string. There we go. Control S. You see the quotes around my 1080 because I just passed a number. It treated this as a number, and I couldn't just connect a number there. There is a way of doing that. I'll show that in a little bit. So let's just go ahead and run this now. There we go. So the show is mint. The resolution should be 1080. This is the end. So, and I could do this over and over again. I could say this is not the end, right? And I can just go ahead and say hello and call it Grail 720. And so now immediately I'm able to reuse this code again with different values in those parameters. So if I Control S, save this. So the show is mint. Resolution should be 1080. This is not the end. Hello. The show is Grail. The resolution should be 720. All right. So that's the purpose of creating a function, is that we could use that code over and over again. right? And so in the case of our shepherd script, if we wanted to also go through the Maya folder, right, and go into the scenes and rename the appropriate default underscore 1080 to be shot number underscore vo1.ma, and then we wanted to delete out all the files that started with default. Well, that's exactly the same thing that we did when we did our Nuke folder. We wanted to delete all the folders that started with the word default. So I could create a function to do that. And I could just say delete defaults, create a function for that, right? So maybe what I should do is start copying over. I'm just going to bring over our shepherd pie from, to give a share. Hopefully this is mostly, oh no, it's all gone. Shepherd pie is all gone. Someone delete it by accident? Someone renamed it. Oh well. Let's see if this still works. Oops. All right, so let's bring that over here. All right, let me just try. See if this works at all. Shepherd, TST, pie, mint, 1080. So bad things are happening in our code. All right.
I copied it down word for word last class. You want me to email it to you?
No, that's okay. Someone. So who did this? I found it, boy. You know who you are. I know you're in here. It was here this morning. It was there this morning. So somebody today started messing. What's that? Yeah, if you want to. Yeah, if you want to do it. So somebody up here knows that they did it, right?
Yeah.
Who was that? Is it Mike?
No, it wasn't me.
It wasn't you. Was it you?
Almost. You're getting closer.
Was it Will?
No.
No.
Almost dead. It was not me.
V.
It was me.
It was me. All right, that's okay. One of the hazards of having our folders structured the way they are.
Is there a way to like lock those files so you can't like accidentally do that?
In theory, yes. Our IT's brains would explode as it is. So yeah. All right. So let's move on. So let's just create a function that would do what we'd like done here. So all I'll do is mint is empty. So let's see if I have any good any good mint on my F drive already. Nothing. Oh, you did? Okay. There we go. So we'll copy that and we'll paste it over here. And so then we'll just run that shepherd. And that's okay. Don't worry about it. It's all right. Easy to fix. So.
I have Python version 3 on my computer, so it wants reference.
Okay. I'll just Control S that. Let's see if this will work. This is going to be an ongoing. Okay, it worked. I just had to get rid of that question mark. All right, so now our mint folder has lots of files. And oh, Maya's empty. Interesting. Okay, so that's good. All right, so in my template folder, yeah, Maya's empty. So Nuke's got a bunch of defaults. So what I'd like to do is create a function that'll do this job instead of just have it what I would consider hard-coded, right? So here's shepherd pie, and where we're at, if I scroll down, and I'm just using the shepherd pie that Jay just put in here, and the only change I had to do was there's one line 4, I just had to delete a question mark in there, that's all. So to make that work, right here, is where we go ahead and for a given folder, we delete all the files that start with the word default, right? So this is something I might want to reuse over and over again. So what I'm going to do is copy this code out, and I'm going to make a function that does this work, that receives a folder to do that work on. So going all the way up to the top of my code here, and I'll hit define, and I'll say del defaults, okay? So that we're just going to delete defaults. Maybe I'll camel case this. And I'll call this dir name as my one parameter that I'm going to get to it. And then I'll go ahead and paste. So here's my file list the directories. And right now, this is giving me, this whole show name shot. These aren't defined. I'm just going to take, this is the directory. Whatever directory I pass to it, then I'm going to process. Okay? So that means file list, the directory that I got in here, and then this file in the file list. If it starts with default, then, again, I'm replacing this with the parameter, right? So I defined a function with a parameter directory name. I get my file list now from that directory name. And then every time I identify a file that starts with default, I remove that file from this directory, right? And yep, I just did one bad thing. And that is I forgot the little quote / quote. All right? So because this directory name passed in doesn't have the slash to tell me, to separate the directory from the file. What's that? Thank you, plus. Here we go. Yes?
This file, you defined that earlier, right? We had like this design parameter earlier. This file?
This file got defined by this for loop.
Oh.
Okay, so that's inside this function. So we know what that is because it's already inside the function. But that's a great point, right? So inside this function, I can't use the variables like show name and show res. They're defined out here in the script, but they're not inside this function. So if I wanted this function to use these, that's called scope, right? I would have to pass them in. So I'd have to have a show name and a show. I don't need them for this, but if I need those, anything that this function needs to operate, I need to pass it in as a parameter. Okay? So I now have this delete defaults, and it takes a directory name. So I could copy that and come down here and take all this code and make it a single line. Delete defaults. Except what I need to do here is I just want to give it the path. So copy that, paste that, and now I can delete this out. All right, so I'm now saying here's this function, delete defaults, which, by the way, we already defined. And as a directory, use this directory. So it's the show name, the shot, and the nuke folder. All right, so if I save this, in theory, it should work again. So I'm just going to go into my F drive. I'm going to delete my Mint folder. And then run my script again. And it should be processing everything. And I should still be able to go in. Now Mint exists again. And Nuke, and it all works. So now I've got that as a function. And I could pass it any directory, right? So, I could, just for fun, right? Because, I'm a wild and fun kind of crazy guy. I could go in here and say Nuke, right? And I don't know, new text document default.txt. Hey, there we go. And I'm just going to copy this whole Nuke folder and just put it in my F drive just for fun, right? Every file in here is called default, except maybe I'll just create a new text document saying not default.txt. All right. So again, this is inside Nuke in the F folder. So, you know, I could from scratch now, like I'll just change this whole script. Right. And what I'm going to just do is say print ICANN has your defaults, or I don't know, all your defaults are mine. Okay. And so then I can say delete defaults. I just got to copy this. And I'm just going to say Nuke, because that's the name of that folder, right? So that's the path based on where I'm at. I could be even more specific, F:nuke, whatever. But I think just Nuke should work. And just to stop anything else from happening, I'm just going to exit right here. So it won't run any of the other code, right? So I defined this function. I print out all your defaults are mine, and I delete defaults in Nuke, and I exit. So I save that. All the rest of the code shouldn't even matter. All your defaults are mine. And then I should be able to go into my Nuke folder, and the only file left is the not defaults, right? So does that make sense? I can reuse that.
Can you go back down to where you actually like call the defaults?
So I'm just going to delete this stuff, right? So I go down to here. Yep. So we do our for loop. We're reading through. We read the file of the show shots, right? Way up here. We sorted them alphabetically. We go into each shot. This shot is whichever one I'm currently looking at, and I replace the new line character with nothing. So I know that this variable contains a nice clean, the shot name. I copied my template over there. I renamed it after the shot. And then I do a try where I go in and actually rename the default Nuke file right here. Yep, default for the show resolution to be our current shot underscore v1, right? So that got named. And then all I do is run delete defaults, that function I created, and I pass it a directory name. That directory name is the show. Then inside the show, this shot, and then inside this shot, the Nuke folder, right? So if I had in Maya, and just for fun, I can go into my template here. Template. So I've got my Nuke defaults here, right? So I copy that and just pretend that those are Maya defaults as well. So I'm just copying those same file names for now into the Maya folder. So I could get I could get rid of them from my actual shots just by going Maya. Right? Now, just for fun, I'm going to comment this line out for now. I'll save it. And so the Maya in the template folder has these default files from Nuke. I'll delete my Mint folder. And I'll run my updated script. So it's going to go ahead and it's creating all the shot folders based on the template. And remember, currently, I commented this thing out, right? So what happened was it copied over the template folder. And for the Nuke folder, it went in, it renamed for the shot, and it deleted out the defaults. But it didn't do anything to Maya, it just copied over. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So now if I do this once more, I'll delete mint. I'll remove this commenting. So now Control S. Now it'll also go and delete all the defaults out of the Maya folder. So in theory, our Maya folders will be empty now within the shots. So go into, should make this easier to examine. Here we are. So there's Mint. There's our folder. If I go into Maya, it's empty now because it just reused that function. And so now now I could do that for as many programs as I needed to do. I could just, hey, go delete the defaults, you know, and I can leave that as some little bit of excess code at the end, you know, just go through and delete all the defaults out of all of the different program folders. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any questions on that for anybody? So another thing that I can do is I can keep all of my functions in a separate Py file and import that as a module so that I don't have to define my functions. Like if I have different programs that I'm running, like I created Shepherd Py to run at the command prompt, and maybe I have Nuke Shepherd to add a bunch of functionality to Nuke. And I have Maya Shepherd to add a bunch of functionality to Maya. But all three of those .py files might make use of the function of deleting defaults. So I want to make those available to everybody. Does that make sense? Right? So what I'll do is just like we're here, we're importing sys and OS and shell utilities. I'd like to import my own module. Darn it, I want to use this. So what I could do is just take this and I'll cut it out. I'll make a new file and put this in, and I'll just call this, since it's show shepherd, right? I'm just going to call it SS module, or show shepherd module. Okay, it doesn't matter what I put in there. That's all a comment. I'll save this. I'm going directly to my F drive right now, and I'll call it ssmod.py. Just going to overwrite something I was practicing with earlier, so hopefully I remember what I did. So I'll save that. Yeah, I'll replay. Oh, no, save it. Yes. Okay. So now there's this ssmod.py that exists that all it does is defines this delete defaults function, right? So that's in my F folder along with my shepherd py. So what I can do now is import ssmod. Okay. So now this will seek out that file ssmod. It assumes it's going to end in .py. Does that make sense? Right. So at my command prompt, I'm right at my F drive. In my F drive, in my F drive, I've got ssmod.py created and saved. And so if I run a script in there, in this case shepherd py, that says import ssmod, what that's telling Python to do is, hey, go look for a script called ssmod.py and import it. And then once that's imported, just like I can say sys.exit or os.makedir, any function that I've created in ssmod, I can access. So now in shepherd py, that function definition doesn't exist, but I imported ssmod. So I can go here and say ssmod delete defaults, ssmod delete defaults, and save that.
So instead of having the function in your script, you have a script where you have that function defined.
Right. And that means I can write any number of scripts, any number of places, and as long as I import ssmod, I've got all the functions that I defined in it to use. All right. So do you guys understand what's happening then, and how that's useful? Will, you kind of looked at me really puzzled.
I just tried to like run my stuff and then got some syntax errors and then missed what you just said. So.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So let me see. Let's just see if this works. I'll go into my F drive, delete my Mint folder. And hopefully that'll work. OS is not defined. Ah, okay. So that does bring up an interesting thing. In my Shepherd Pie, I called ssmod, and what it's saying now is, hey, I got an error. The error that I got was running this ssmod delete defaults. Oh, okay. Well, I went into ssmod, and on line 4, I say file list OS list directory. Hey, the global OS is not defined. So again, this is having to do with that scope. Remember, in here in Shepherd Pie, I imported sys and OS and shell utilities. I'm just going to copy that. But over here, I didn't import all of those. So I said OS list directory, but that doesn't exist. So I just have to remember in here, import OS. Save that. Let's run this again. Let me just make, I probably need to delete my Mint. Yeah, delete. All right, I'm going to save this, Control S. Let's save this, Control S. And hopefully, nice. All right, so this should now, I've got my Mint, and it did all the things that I asked it to do. All right. So now that's you just have to make sure, you know, any functions that you're using, I had to import them in here so that it went into ssmod for the module. It tried to do things that it didn't import OS. Yes.
Is there a way to ask for input after running script instead of having to create one directory inside the file?
Yes.
I did that actually.
You did that. You go ahead. You can.
There's a function called input. You put input.
And the standard import is the keyboard. So.
You just put input and then parentheses to some function, and then it asks for string in for what it asks. So just instead of having the variable shown, show the arguments.
So I just did a quick Google search for Python input, and here it is right here, input, and then you can give it a prompt, and then you can type in an answer, and it'll say that, it'll reply, right? So, you know, you could do a conditional, you know, an if statement at the beginning here. One of the things that we could do is check how many arguments did we get. And if we got less than 1, or we only got the one argument, which is the name of the actual program, but we didn't get argument 1 and we didn't get argument 2. You know, if the count, we didn't get them, we could say, all right, input, what's the name of the show, and then put that into the show name, and then input, what's the resolution it should be, right? So. Number of arguments. So let's see here. When we run, show name is Mint. All right. So the arguments, here's number of arguments, 3. Here's the list of them, right? So we know that we're always going to get 1 argument, at least, the name of the actual script. So what we could do, here's this len arguments, right? So we could say if len is less than 3. And we know at least one of the two arguments at the end were left off, right? So at that point, we could say, we know the last one was definitely missing. We don't know if the first one was missing, right? So we can say show res, let's go back, looking here, all right, equals. So there we go, show res equals input. What is the show resolution? Right?
That doesn't necessarily mean that show res wasn't the correct argument.
Well, only because it's the first argument to the script should be the show name, and the last one should be the show res. So if we were less than 3, the show res was missing. Right. Yeah. So else show res equals argument 2. Right? So there we go. If we didn't get all 3 arguments, we're going to ask what the resolution is first. And then if, I'm just going to copy this.
Like, tell you how to do, what does that do again? Len?
So the len reports how many values are in the arguments, right? So right here is the output of that, number of arguments, 3 arguments, right? So, and then the argument list is, these are the 3 that we got. Always we get at least 1, the name of the actual script. So we check to see if we got less than 3. If we got 3, then we know we got the script name, we have the show name, and we have the resolution. So we know we can use argument 2, because it's indexed by 0, as the show resolution. And, well, by definition, I'm just going to put 2 here. If it's less than 3, we need to ask for the show resolution. All right. And here, what's the show name? So I first checked, do we have less than 3 arguments? If so, we need definitely to ask for what the resolution is. After that, do we have less than 2, which means we just ran the script with no arguments. We didn't get the show name either. So we need to ask for the show name. Make sure we put that in the proper variable. Plug that into the show name. But if we did have 2 or more, then we already got the show name. We put that first argument into show name. So now, in theory, Control S, this should work. Just going to delete my mint folder. So right now, as it is, if I give it both parameters, it shouldn't ask me for anything. And it reports the show is mint, the resolution is 1080, and everything runs fine. So I'm going to go ahead and delete mint. And then I'll run, but I'm only going to delete my last parameter. So I give it a show name mint, but I didn't give it a resolution, right? All right, so mint, I run, and hey, I don't know, I only got 2 arguments. What's the show resolution? 1080. Oh, I failed. Show resolution 1080 cannot concatenate string and int objects. Yeah, maybe. Let's try that. Okay, so that worked. Quotation works. So now there is a function in Python. You can convert an integer to a string. I didn't look up that stuff ahead of time, and I'm not going to go down that. It's a tiny rabbit hole, but there's a tiny rabbit hole about checking, is that variable an integer or not, or is it a string? And if it's not a string, then convert it to one. Let me just see.
I have a question about this. What if they put a resolution instead of the show name?
Well, then,
Are we going to check that?
yeah, we're not checking that right now. Yeah, bad things will happen if you do that. So convert variable, convert to string. There we are. Is it just string? Str. Okay. str. And then you put the variable inside it, right? Yeah. str10. Good. Okay. So, and I think str, if you feed str a string, it'll still work. So right now, this only works if I put quotes around my 1080, right? If I go and so we're expecting a number to be entered. Here it is, right here. Input the show resolution. So I'm just going to put str parentheses around that. So this little function and little highlights for me where that parentheses is basically whatever input I get, I'm going to treat it as a string and then put it into show res, right? So if I save this, now let me delete mint. Even if I don't put in the quotes, mint, I type in 1080 with no quotes, now it'll work because it converted that number into a string before saving it to that variable. All right, and then if I just do shepherd pie with no parameters, and again, I'm just going to delete my mint folder. Now it asks me for my resolution, 1080, and what's the show name, mint. And now what's wrong? There's the show name, file name string 1 in module. Name mint is not defined. Well, that's interesting. Run that again, 1080. Maybe if I do quotes, is that my problem? Okay, so for whatever reason, it doesn't, if I just type in a word, it's not treating it as a word, it's treating it, I don't know what it is, as a variable or something. So, so it looks like though, I should be able to fix that with the same fixes I did right here, converting it to a string. So I should just be able to take this, copy that input, treat it as a string, show name equals that, save. All right, I deleted mint. Resolution's 1080, the name is mint. It's not doing that. Huh. File string line 1 in module. Name mint is not defined. Really weird. Why is that treating that as a name instead of?
Did you show me like before you asked it? In the script here?
No, I think this is pretty much the first time show name is used. All right, I'll look into that and get back to you guys. For whatever reason, when I pass it text, it's treating it as something special instead of simply treating it as an input value. It doesn't happen when I put quotes around it. So I'll have to look into that. It may be something special with the input command. Input, hello person, enter your name. So I just don't know why it,
Should have used it
Are you
as
regrabbing
message.
args?
No.
am I recalling what?
Are you recalling args again? Because the list, after you do each input, I believe args is reset. So like each one of the arguments is, so like when you do a new question for new query for input, it like that has its own arg list. So you're saying, say like else show as equals to subject to, is that writing?
No, it shouldn't change args because this is a separate. So args are just passed in from the command line. So like after I do this, if I wanted to, I should still be able to list my args and they should be the same, right? So if I list args right here, just like this, they should be unchanged even if I did an input. So save this. Right, so my argument list here, shepherd pie, right? So if I put in 1080, it's still the same. Yeah. And I think Control C, by the way, would exit out while it's waiting. Yeah, so Control C stops. So I'll check into that. So there's the rabbit hole created by, can you get input? In this case, it works if I put quotes around that input. It treats that input as a string. I'm just a little surprised that it wouldn't in some way default to that, or by putting string around that input that it doesn't treat it as a string. So I'll look at it. Okay. You okay over there?
I'm good, sorry.
Okay. All right. So what I want to try to do now is start building out, a better, more functional shepherd pie. And really, to keep things short too, I'm not going to name this shepherd anymore. I'm just going to create a whole new script. We'll start from scratch, and we'll call it SS for show shepherd. So that way, anytime we're running it, it can, or actually, let me take that back. So what we want to do is create this system so that when we start working at a command prompt, we can work through our show management. So now I'm already confused. So where was I? All right. So some of the things that we want to be able to do, for example, let's just get to being able to launch Nuke and run a specific script, right? So right now, for example, if I do successfully run the shepherd pie, so mint 1080. So now we have our mint show. So one thing that's kind of a pain in the neck right now is that I actually do, to run shepherd pie, to do anything, I have to type in Python shepherd pie and then parameters. So I'd like to stop that. What I'd like to do is just do SS space and then do something for me, right? So I don't have to write in Python space shepherd pie space and then a whole bunch of parameters, right? The Python space shepherd pie space, I'm going to do that over and over again. So what I'd like to do is just do SS space and then start telling it what to do. So there are, we showed DOS key before, right? So if I do DOS key right now and list the macros just by / macros, the Python one is one I created before. So we could create another macro that points straight to, that actually is Python exe and then shepherd pie and pass it all those parameters, right? And so what I want to be able to do is like now, but I don't want to have to type this over and over again. So what I can do is, remember I had passed in the nickdk.txt and it had one thing in it, right? So if we go over here to week 1 for our resources, in here there's nickdk.txt. It really only has one thing. It has basically Python equals and then the path to Python and a bunch of $sign parameters so that it would get all of that. We're not limited to just having one macro defined in here. We can define as many as we want. So what I can do is file save as, or I could just add at the end of this some more macros. I can add another one and say, hey, SS = equals, and it can be the path to Python, and space shepherd.py. Okay, and then I still want to pass shepherd.py some parameters, so I'll put those in here. So that's another thing. I just saved it here. And what I did to get that to happen here, like if I do, can I clear? I forget if I can actually erase all the DOS-key macros. What I did is I created, let's just say we also want, I know it didn't work. That's yes, it did work. Okay, let's say I want a macro also to run Nuke, right? So I created, here's another little macro, Nuke, and a whole bunch of $ arguments so that all the arguments can go in there. Now I'm just going to double check here on my computer. See, oh, and this is not in the screen cap. So just so for the screen cap purpose, here's Python, and it's just Python and a bunch of arguments. Here's Nuke equals, and so a path to Nuke 11. And I'm just going to see if that actually exists on this PC. So program files, Nuke 11 v1. All right, there we go. So that needs to be Nuke 11 v1. Inside there is a executable for Nuke 11.0.exe. So that's all valid. And then a bunch of parameters. And SS I created as a, basically launching Python, passing it shepherd.py, and then passing it all the arguments that are after that. It's Fatma.
Why did we put Nuke in there? Like, would be right here? Is it the one with Nuke?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
like, open it up.
Right. So right now, if I, let me just say DOS key, and I say Nuke equals, and then nothing after it, right? So now my list of macros doesn't include Nuke. And for that matter, oops, I can go here and say SS equals nothing. So that now at this point, my only DOS key macro is Python, right? So right now, if I type in SS, nothing happens. If I type in the word Nuke, nothing happens. Okay. So what I want to be able to do is run Nuke from the command on demand, right? Now, right now, if I really want to run Nuke, I need to go to the C drive, and I need to CD to program files, and then CD into Nuke. I hit tab twice because I know that there's a Nuke 10 and a Nuke 11 folder. So I want to CD into the Nuke 11 version 1, right? And then here I can type in Nuke, hit tab. Okay, there it is, Nuke 11.0.exe. So if I run that, it launches Nuke. And I say launch, and I get some status info, and Nuke runs. And may we automatically? No, I'm not giving you any of my information. All right, so Nuke ran. It ran in a window that wasn't screen captured. So here it is. It launched by the default. Okay, but I know when I'm working in the show, I'm going to use Nuke a lot. And so I don't want to have to type in all of those commands and change directories. I just want to type in the word Nuke and run it. So I'll close that. So now, to make things more streamlined, what I'm doing is I'm defining a more inclusive, more comprehensive macro script. So let's actually just rename this. Oops. ssmacro.txt. All right, so I'll copy that right now. I forget if I have a folder open for this, so I'll just go into our AW Express, resources, new folder, Eco 3, and I'll even just create a new folder called scripts. right? So in there, I'm going to paste my ss macro.text. All right, and in that is all these definitions. Just drag and drop it. So it defines Python, and it has the path of Python. And I could change this, you know, I could keep this, a different version of this script on every computer, right? So that if a different computer has Houdini in a different place, or has Nuke in a different place, or, you know, whatever, I can make a different version of this file for each computer and save it in my documents or something like that. All right, but for now, I've got it out on the network. So now when I run this for DOSKey, so I can go to F. So I've got this saved in my F drive scripts. So I can say DOSKey and / macro file equals, and then I know it's in the scripts folder. So _ scripts / ss macro.text. All right, so that ran successfully. So all that did was tell DOSKey to go get that macro file and read it in and apply whatever macros that are defined. So now if I ask DOSKey / macros, tell me everything you got. Give me everything you got. It's got SS defined, which is run Python shepherd py, plus pass on those parameters. Nuke. So now if I type in nuke right now, I can't find the path specified. Well, that sucks. Let's see, what did I do wrong? Oh, V2, I think V1 is installed here. So let me just go over here and make sure, actually, let me close this. I'm on my F drive version of this file in version 1. Save that. So let's redefine, run that again. Let's say macros. Everyone knows all I'm doing is hitting the up arrows and down arrows to rerun these commands, okay? So now I've defined that the folder is the V1 version of Nuke because that's where it was. If I scroll up here in my somewhere in here, program files. Yeah, see in this on this computer, it's Nuke 11 V1 installed, whereas when I was practicing earlier, I was on a computer that had version 2. All right, so now I can type in Nuke and it should run. Boom, look at that, it runs. Woohoo! So now that's a lot easier than navigating all around. So I've got that ready for me. So that's kind of cool. So I could close there. Now what I would like to do is open a file with Nuke, right? So did I run my Minty stuff again? Okay, so Mint is here. All right, so there's my default file. So I'd like to open this file with Nuke, right? So I passed that as a parameter. So here's the path to my file. Right, so now I can type in Nuke, pasting the path to that file, / and I just start typing the name of that file, capital T, and tab. So now Nuke and that file name, right? Does that make sense, everybody? So when I hit enter, it launches Nuke. And not only does it launch Nuke, but fingers crossed, it opened that specific file. And I know that it opened that file because that's the file name up here. And also I have my HD resolution, okay?
What was that last part of the code that we did in terminal?
So
Back to that.
yeah. So let me close this. So all I did in terminal was I wrote in Nuke, and then I put in the path, the full path to that Nuke file that I wanted it to open. So it ran Nuke and it gave it the path to this file. Now, that's a whole lot of typing, right? What I'd really like to do is have Shot Shepherd do this for me. So I want to rewrite Shot Shepherd to do more things for me. Instead of just taking in a show name and a resolution and then it generates that set of files, what I'd really like it to do is say SS, and then you give it like a -N and a shot number, and it automatically runs Nuke, the right version of Nuke, and opens up the most recent version of that Nuke comp. And all I had to do was type in SS space -N space and then the shot number. Because my supervisor just came, put a Post-it note on my desk and said, hey, can you clean up the noise in this shot? So I just want to open up that Nuke file and start working in there to clean up the noise. Yeah, I've got it on the Post-it note which shot I'm working on. I don't want to have to drill in and find which is the latest one. I just went SS space -N and the shot number and open that up. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so that changes a bunch of things for Shepherd now because we want to get an initial argument and it's going to tell us what to do because maybe -N, we want to teach it to open up Nuke for us. Maybe -C is create, -CS is create a show. -D is delete all those stupid default things. So, we want to be able to have that first parameter essentially be, some type of command to the Shepherd script to do something new. So now we've got to take that parameter, understand what's being asked of us, and do that thing. So that's where we're going with this. Any questions on that? Do you see the value in being able to do that? So what we want to be able to do here is instead of saying Nuke, do this, I want to say SS-N and then THN010 or something like that. And then that would just open up the Nuke folder, the Nuke file for us. So we're not going to go through all the steps of actually finding the most recent one. We'll just, for now, just going to open up the version 1 file for Nuke. So your hand was up.
Yes, I was going to ask a question.
Go for it.
So we can do the same thing for Maya too, right?
Yeah, right. So we can have a -M to launch Maya. We can have a -S to launch Synthesize, -H, and we could just create as many little parameters as we like. So we just need to start processing those.
And where did we create those dash parameters again? Is it like?
Well, we haven't yet.
Oh, we
That's
haven't.
so
Okay.
that's where we need to. That's what we need to do. All right. So what I'm going to do is a couple things. So as not to mess with our old Shepherd stuff, I'm going to go to my F drive and actually let's go into Notepad. All right, so here's Shepherd Pi as it exists right now. Now at this point, I've already got Mint created. So anyway, what I'll do is, do I want to? Say that, what?
So like the way that I forget the follow you're doing, but like because of the way that Shepherd Pi creates the directory structure for all of your shots, it doesn't know that directory structure in the Python for once you start calling it.
Right.
So you actually have to.
So you have to stick to the naming. You have to stick to the naming conventions. So the naming convention, based on the template, is that all of your Nuke scripts are in the shot folder under if folder called Nuke. So we know, based on adherence to the naming conventions, where the Nuke file is.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that once you leave the directory of the shot shepherd, so say like even at root,
Oh,
to create SS, you
yes.
actually are no longer in there, so you actually have to hard code your file with the parameters of the file.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. So we need to correct for that as well.
That's like the,
Yeah.
you lose everything if you do that.
Right.
You're actually your dir needs to point to the dir that you created dir again.
Dir.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Okay. So yeah, that's an issue right now because right now the way we run Shepherd Pi is the first parameter we give it is the name of the show. So it creates that folder, fills it up with shots. if I just run right now this command, let's say everything works, and I do ss-n in the shot, it doesn't know what show that shot is in. So it doesn't know that this shot exists in a folder called mint or a folder called grail. So we need to be able to resolve which show we're in, where the folders are. You know, it's assuming right now I have no way of telling it where this shot is located as it is right now. So we need to be able to define a show and where that show is. That is what Ty is saying. Does that make sense? Does it? Nobody cares. Have I completely lost you guys? Okay. I get worried when nobody asks any questions sometimes. So there's a couple ways that we can approach that. One way is to define a set. There's something called an environment variable in operating systems. Okay, in DOS, the environment variables are controlled by a command called set. That's usually used to set environment variables. But if you just type in at the command prompt the word set and hit return, you get a list of all the environment variables that already exist.
What's an environment variable?
An environment variable is a value that is known for any process inside this command prompt, right? So if I want to know who the user is right now, there's an environment variable that's been defined called username that returns this is who's logged into the system, right? So if I want to know at the DOS command prompt who is the user, I can say set username with no value, and that returns to me username equals NEJ29. All right. What's nice about this is that Python has access to these. So I can go do a quick search here.
These variables are like already in the computer. Like
They're
already
right, environment variables. So they're defined in the computer's environment. Okay.
But it will be defined by the computer the same way.
No, they're not in every computer. They're just in, but every computer has them. Okay. So there are environment variables on the Macintosh. There are environment variables in DOS. Okay. And Python has access to those. So Python get environment variables, right? There's a little search. And I can go into my first link here, and it shows OS environ, and you can get something, right? So right now, I have this environment variable username, NEJ29. So if I just go into Python, right, I can import OS, and then I can just say print os.environ, right? That's what we got out of here, os.environ, and go and say username. And it prints NEJ29 right inside Python. So this is a variable that exists. It's known to the computer, and it's also known to Python. So it's a value that we can share. And for that matter, if I go into Nuke, oops, let me exit, right? And I've got Nuke defined, right? So I can run Nuke.
You also generate a text file upon first call of the Shepherd script to pick your directory path so that the alias then knows about the later calls.
Yeah. For now, just
Yeah, because I mean, environment variables are fun.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. We're gonna go with this for now. Just to finish demonstrating in Nuke. You know, you've got all your panels, and anytime you want, you can go into one of these. It's not showing up here. Okay, thank you. So here we go in Nuke. If I click on any of these little panels, we can split and all kinds of stuff. But if I want to say get a script editor, I just go to Windows and Script Editor, and I can start typing Python in here. So again, I can just do the same thing as I did at the Python prompt, import OS, and then just say print, let's spell it correctly, os.environ username. All right, and then this button right here in the script editor runs that script. And what did I do wrong? OS and I swear that totally worked when I tried it out this morning. Oh, maybe I need square brackets? Maybe that's what I need. Yes, I need square brackets. There we go. That's better. So now we can run it. There we go. Interview works. So, yeah, I mean, what Ty's suggesting is that we'll get to a point where we actually have a file that's like an ini file, essentially, where we can define all of the variables and such things that we want to do. So I'll get to that in maybe in a future class. But for now, just know that environment variables exist, right? And they're accessible via Python anywhere. So if I define an environment variable for a show inside the computer, inside the command prompt, I can reuse that variable anywhere, right? So I'll close Nuke, be back at my command prompt.
Would you define the environment variable? Would it be there like forever?
It's not there forever, right? So if I create a environment variable in command prompt, if I use set and I say show name equals mint, right? So that looks like it was successful. If I hit set and nothing else, just get a whole list of all the things. There it is, show name, mint, right? So if I hit set and show name with nothing after it, it should come back and say, hey, show name equals mint. And if I go into Python and import OS and say print os.environ with square brackets, show name, close square bracket, I get mint. All that works, okay? Now, I've added that environment variable. The environment that that's in is this specific command prompt on this computer, okay? Now, there are initialization files built into the computer that define all of these others, right? And admin users can actually have these variables added to like an autoexec.bat, and that they automatically get created when you boot up the machine, when you log into the machine. And that's why we have user domain, Drexel, all these, some of these things are already here as a result of like V-Ray. You know, an admin user installed V-Ray for Maya 2017, and V-Ray uses these environment variables to know where it lives on this machine, okay? So some of these things are initialized when you log into the machine or when you boot up the machine. But because I, as a user, in this command prompt just told it, hey, set show name equals mint, now that's defined in the scope of this particular command prompt. So that works all here. If I start up a whole brand new command prompt just by opening command, and now I've got a brand new command prompt, and I hit set inside this new command prompt, show name isn't here, okay? So that's just, it's important to understand that when I created that show name environment variable, the environment that it's in is this specific command prompt. And then when I close this command prompt, it goes away. But
Is it, so you said to have it like actually like permanent, you would have to be an admin on the computer?
right, right. But now something like a show name, you wouldn't want permanent anyway, right? Because you'd be changing show names all the time.
Would those still show up in Nuke as well?
They
Or
do
was that
show,
just,
right? As long as I launch Nuke from this command prompt, right? So if I go into just regular applications here and find Nuke and run it, is it under Foundry? Why isn't Nuke under here? Yeah, I guess so, right? So I can just take the Windows button, type in the word Nuke, not showing up on the
other side?
screen capture, but that's okay. Why is that Nuke Assist? It's just not, it doesn't even know it's there. Anyway, I'm going to run Nuke 10. So it launches. But I'm just launching it from outside of this command prompt. So therefore, when I get my script editor, oh, that's interesting. I even remembered the last script I typed in. That's creepy. It's creepy. All right, username worked. But if I go in here and say, give me show name and run, it doesn't work. Key error. Show name doesn't exist, right? I want it to work. But if I close this, that one was the Nuke that I ran from the Windows prompt. If I run Nuke from this command prompt where it has been defined, dun, 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 there we go. And it always opens in the window that we're not capturing. So we'll put it in here, and we'll get our script editor out here. All right, and we say show name this time and run it mint, okay? So as long as we're running within the context of that command prompt, that environment variable is available everywhere, right? And so, you know, Ty was talking about potentially having files to initialize that, and I could. I want to initialize these, though, at the command prompt level, even before we get into Python. So what I could do is, you could what?
You can set it auto-generating where you launch your first assets.
All right, that's fair enough.
To that directory, to that you use for this.
Right.
But that's like a lot of setup, otherwise you can use it.
Okay. So what you're saying is if I go into Mint, that all my scripts should be in there, right?
Yeah, like you should have like a utils folder.
Or scripts folder.
Yeah, scripts folder.
Oh, a scripts folder. Ooh, what an idea. That's okay. Yeah. So by virtue of the fact that I am in the Mint folder, I want to be able to define everything I need with that, right?
But you can do that with your shepherd script on their first call. Because your first call is in it. In it is to create directories.
Sure. But I might have created the directories a long ago, and now I'm running it for the first time again days later. I rebooted my computer.
Yeah, but as long as the file lives there, you point to that. It's like a whole triangle. If it already is there, read it, and then that's my new directory. So when you call your alias anywhere else on the box, it points to the right to the temp file or the generated file.
Yeah.
And then that is like, oh, I was already created, and this was my directory. This is now that directory.
Right. But now that requires a whole lot more setup that I didn't do I would have to do on the fly right now. Right? Just trying to figure out. I see what you're saying. So what Ty is saying is that by being in the Mint folder, if Mint had a folder in it that, do you mind if I call it scripts?
No.
Yeah. So this folder inside Mint would be where I keep all my scripts, right?
Shepherd, yeah, but like Shepherd Pie, like itself, I know you're making a project, but it actually is something for making projects.
Right.
So it's like, I don't even know if you want to call it I mean, I guess because you're creating Mint, so Mint is the project, so like Shepherd is like creating the whole project directory.
Yeah.
But you would have to then set, like when you create your alias, you'd have to point to say the run script inside of here to actually be in this project.
Yeah.
Because it's like if you want to actually build this as something to use, like this is only working out for like Mint, so you're like stuck in Mint. Things are kind of hard coded, but if you build it so that you can reference a file that tells you how to set something up in the project,
Mhm.
then you're running like in any project.
Right. Ugh. Okay. So let's see, what can I do with this? Where are we at? We're at 3 o'clock already. All right. So I've introduced some of these things. I think the only way I can effectively work this now is to go home and make a tutorial about at least launching Nuke. Because with 30 minutes left in class, I'm not going to knock this out right now in front of everybody. What I will do is share one last little nugget. So we know that environment variables exist, that Python can access them. We're going to be using that. The one final piece that we will be using is the fact that Python can launch other programs. So that if we write scripts in Python, we can use them instead of, like right now at the command line, I have to type in Nuke in the file name, and it runs Nuke and it passes that file. What I want to be able to do is have Python do that for me. If I can do that in Python, then anything that I can script in Python can then launch any other program to do things. And that gets us closer to the point where I can make a Python script that'll actually take a file and put it on the render farm for me with a really short command. Instead of having to know every parameter and go into Cube and hit this new job and did I set all the right things? Like I could just say SS space -Q and the shot name, and QN is for the Nuke file and QM, whatever. So if we write these programs, then like forever in that show, I can just launch stuff on demand. I could make a command to render from Maya or render from Nuke without having to be in that program to begin with. So I can just hand it, hey, my Maya file is ready. Go ahead and render it. And someone just goes to the command line and renders it on another machine and hops on another machine. Like, I'm ready to render something else. Okay, so that's the direction we're going in. I do like your ideas of having a file configure everything. And so that's what I'll do ahead of the weekend. I'll do that. I don't know if that'll be part of the quiz. I don't even know what the quiz will be next week yet. So I'll try to get something together for that. But the last piece that I do want to show in class is the fact that Python can actually launch programs. All right. And so just to show that off for now, go into our trusty, and I think it's subprocess is the actual command to use, but Python launch program. All right. And bots, how to create a bot with Python. Let's Stack Overflow, how to execute a program. And I'm scrolling past this because the old way of doing it was OS system, was basically sending a command to the system. This might still work, but subprocess call is kind of the newer version of that. So here's the example in Python code. So it's basically there's a module built in called subprocess, and if you do subprocess call, it'll actually run a command. So what I could do really quickly, I suppose, is just create a script in Python. So we'll go into here and just create a new file. We'll paste that in. Again, in here, Nuke is defined to run Nuke for us. So I could just do subprocess call and should be able to do nuke. Actually, I should just be able to put in quotes. I'm not sure why they do all this stuff. Nuke. And then, you know, our file name. In this case, it's that path. I'll go into here. So here's our path. Whoops. That. And the file name. Okay. This is just a really rapid. So what this should be doing is nuke space. So it should be set calling nuke. So essentially this should be exactly like, I just copy this for a second. We'll test it at the command prompt first. So nuke space, that we run, rerun nuke. And we open that file, we see that file name here, and we've got our HD. So I'll close. And there's a little interesting thing that, I don't know, when nuke exits, it doesn't come back to the command prompt until you hit enter. So there we go. So in theory, this Python script run by Python should run nuke. So I'm just gonna save as into F nukeshot.py. Doesn't even need any parameters. So now that exists. So I should be able to, right here, say Python nukeshot.py. And the system can't find this file specified. All right, so it might be that it doesn't like my macros. So I might need to go by the original syntax here and actually give it the full path to the nuke executable, and then the full path to the. Oh wait, there might be another way to do this. OS. Could it be pass? Hold on. Call. That's right. I remember reading this earlier. Call subprocess call needs to be set up in this kind of square bracket approach. So let me just see if that'll work. If I go back to, I know, size all around. Let's put in the square bracket and then a comma and then a square bracket. Is that the format that it used? Square bracket, string, comma, string, square bracket, parenthesis. All right. And we'll just do that. All right, save that and let's try it again. Still no go. So let's replace this with the full path to nuke. So C:\program file, oops, files slash, I think I have it in my, this file. So there's my full path to nuke. Copy that. Paste that into here. See if that works instead. Control S, save. Aha! There we go. All right. So basically, the Python, by using that subprocess call, it didn't know about the macros. The macros didn't exist. So invalid argument. Can't read. I might have, what did I do bad over here? Huh, that doesn't look bad. That worked. This didn't work. So it didn't open the file. So I'll check into what I need to do for the format. There's this sub-process call, if I remember correctly, I read and found that there's actually another approach to making that call that'll be a little easier to understand. Personally, in my head, it works a lot better when I could just write out the command line exactly the way I would have written it in the command prompt. And there is a different way of running this so that it would call that. So what I will do in either today or, I'm sorry, no later than Friday, is put together a sample where we can use a file to configure the show. Whenever we run the shepherd, we'll import that file to define our show and execute some stuff and be able to launch Nuke. So I'll put that together. Please study it and understand it. I will not quiz you next week. Just this ended up being too confusing. So there won't be a quiz next week. We'll go through, I'll make the example, I'll get it in before the weekend so you guys can spend some time with it. What I'd like you to do is try to go through it. I'll probably record a video so that you can get an understanding of what I wrote and why I wrote it. And then you should practice that, writing it yourself to see if it works, and then bring in questions, and then we'll go from there. We'll have a quiz a different week.
Yeah, recorded like class videos.
Yeah.
Where are those being posted?
So I sent out an email, I think it was maybe Wednesday morning or Tuesday evening, that just has a YouTube link.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is being recorded to YouTube.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
But we can't search it. Is it unlisted?
It's unlisted, so you can't, I mean, it's for you guys specifically, not the world. So you can't just search YouTube for it. I emailed the link to you, to your Drexel email address, and that way you have that link. So, so yeah. So I will write up something that uses files for initialization, and that way, like Ty says, I mean, ideally, you would be in the mint folder, and then whenever you just run shot shepherd, it knows what to do because you're already in the mint folder. And then if you have another show called Grail, you go to Grail and you run shepherd from inside Grail, and it knows what to do special for Grail, and so on and so forth for as many shows as you ever create. So that's exactly the way it should go, and so that's what I'll work on, so you guys can mess around with that. Yeah, sorry, that didn't work out as well as I would have hoped. So no quiz next week, and then we'll pick up on this and move forward from there. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. And